There are moments in life when the pain feels too heavy to carry, moments when nothing makes sense and you're left asking, why me? You may feel broken, lost, or even abandoned. But even in those darkest moments, there is a deeper truth we often overlook. God has a purpose. Pain is not pointless. It is not random. It is not punishment. It's part of a bigger story that we can't always see right now. Just like a seed must be buried before it can grow, sometimes we must go through the darkest soil for our purpose to take root. When life hurts, it can feel like everything is falling apart, but often it's really falling into place. Think of the times you grew the most, not in comfort, but in struggle. When you were pushed to your limits, tested beyond what you thought you could handle, that pain shaped you. You see, God's purpose isn't always to remove the pain, but to bring something powerful out of it. Sometimes it's to strengthen your faith. Sometimes it's to build your character. Sometimes it's so you can help someone else through the same thing. And sometimes it's simply to bring you closer to Him. We live in a world that tries to avoid pain at all costs. But in God's hands, pain becomes a tool, not a tragedy. He uses what was meant to break you to build you. He takes the tears and turns them into wisdom, compassion, and strength. If you're hurting today, don't lose hope. Don't believe the lie that your pain has no meaning. God sees you. He knows you're suffering. And even when you can't feel Him, He's right there, working, shaping, loving you through it all. One day you'll look back and realize that the very pain that tried to destroy you was the beginning of something sacred. You'll see how God took what hurt the most and made it a turning point in your story. So hold on. Keep walking. Keep praying. When life hurts you, remember, God has a purpose, and it's more beautiful than you can imagine. Pain is not without purpose. That truth is often hard to hold on to when you're in the middle of deep suffering, when life breaks your heart, when your plans collapse. When you're dealing with grief, betrayal, illness, or failure, it's natural to ask, why is this happening to me? The pain feels so overwhelming, so personal, that it's easy to believe it's all just chaos, that there's no reason behind it. But the truth is, even when life doesn't make sense, there is a deeper, divine purpose unfolding behind the scenes. Every single person on this earth goes through pain. It's a shared human experience, but it's also one that shapes us in unique ways. The hardest moments in life tend to change us the most. They slow us down. They force us to reflect. They peel back the surface of who we are and reveal the deeper parts of us, our resilience, our faith, our inner strength. That's not an accident. God allows certain struggles in our lives not to destroy us, but to develop us. The process is never easy, but it is always meaningful. Sometimes, pain comes into our lives to teach us lessons we would never learn otherwise. When everything is going well, we rarely stop to think about what matters most. We get comfortable, distracted, even spiritually distant. But when life hurts us, when we find ourselves at rock bottom, that's often when we begin to search for something more. That's when we cry out to God with a kind of honesty and desperation we wouldn't have otherwise. Pain has a way of stripping away the noise and bringing clarity to what's truly important. We might not understand the purpose behind our pain while we're in it, but time often reveals its value. Think back to something difficult you went through in the past. At the time, it probably felt unbearable, but looking back, you can often see how it changed you. Maybe it made you stronger, wiser, or more compassionate. Maybe it led you down a path you never would have chosen on your own, but one that brought you closer to your calling. That's not coincidence. That's purpose. That's God at work. There's a beautiful truth in the idea that God never wastes a hurt. Whatever you're going through, no matter how painful or confusing, God can use it. He can take what was meant to harm you and turn it into something good. He can use your pain to build your faith, to shape your character, or to prepare you for something greater. Sometimes the purpose of pain isn't even just about you. Sometimes your story becomes someone else's survival guide. The comfort and wisdom you gain through your suffering can be a lifeline for someone else walking a similar path. We also have to remember that our perspective is limited. We see only a small part of the picture, but God sees it all. He sees how today's pain fits into tomorrow's promise. He sees how every loss, every disappointment, every detour is working together for a purpose we might not understand right now. That's why trust is so important. Trust doesn't mean you enjoy the pain or pretend it doesn't hurt. Trust means you believe that God is still in control, even when it feels like your world is falling apart. Pain is never easy. No one wants to suffer. But when we start to believe that our pain has purpose, we begin to see it differently. We begin to find strength in the struggle. We begin to look for what God might be teaching us or how he might be preparing us. And most importantly, we begin to hope. Not in our circumstances, but in the one who holds our future. So if you're hurting today, know this. Your pain is not wasted. It is not meaningless. You are not being punished. You are being shaped, refined, and prepared for something beyond what you can imagine. Hold on to that truth. Even in the darkest moments, God is working. And one day, whether in this life or the next, you'll understand that all of it had a purpose. Growth happens through struggle. It's a truth we often resist because no one wants to go through pain, loss, or hardship. We naturally seek comfort, peace, and stability. But the reality is some of the most significant growth in our lives doesn't come from easy seasons. It comes from the hard ones. Just like muscles grow only when they are challenged under pressure, our inner strength, our faith, our resilience, and our character develop most deeply through struggle. When everything is going well in life, it's easy to stay the same. We can go through our routines, enjoy the blessings, and not think much about change. But when struggle hits, when we face heartbreak, uncertainty, failure, or adversity, everything changes. Struggle forces us out of autopilot. It pushes us to dig deeper, to ask hard questions, and to find strength we didn't know we had. We don't grow by avoiding struggle. We grow by facing it head-on and allowing it to shape us. Think of the most inspiring people you've ever known or heard about. Almost always, their stories include seasons of deep difficulty, times when they were knocked down, challenged, or brought to the edge of what they thought they could handle. But those are also the times when they grew the most. They developed perseverance, patience, compassion, and wisdom, not in spite of their struggles, but because of them. The pressure didn't crush them, it transformed them. Our faith, too, grows through struggle. When everything is easy, faith doesn't require much effort. But when life becomes hard, when prayers seem unanswered, when we don't understand what God is doing, that's when faith is tested. And in that testing, it becomes real. It's one thing to believe in God when life is smooth, something entirely different to hold on to him when life is falling apart. Struggles force us to decide whether our faith is shallow or deep, whether we trust God only when it's convenient, or whether we truly believe he is with us no matter what. Struggle also exposes the parts of us that need to grow. It reveals our insecurities, our fears, our false beliefs, and our limitations. While that can feel uncomfortable, it's also a gift, because once we see those things, we have the opportunity to work on them. We can begin to let go of pride, fear, or dependence on things that aren't truly stable. We can start to lean more on God and less on ourselves. We can develop humility, grace, and strength that lasts far beyond the current season. It's important to understand that struggle doesn't mean failure. Just because you're going through something hard doesn't mean you've done something wrong or that you're weak. In fact, it often means the opposite, that you're being refined. When you're in the middle of a struggle, it can feel like you're stuck or falling apart. But even in those moments, growth is happening beneath the surface. The pain you feel, the prayers you whisper through tears, the strength it takes just to keep going, none of it is wasted. You're building endurance. You're becoming someone more capable of handling life's deeper challenges. You're learning how to stand firm in your values, how to care for others who suffer, and how to walk through darkness with hope. And one day, you'll look back on that struggle not just as a time of pain, but as a turning point. You'll see how it changed you for the better, how it prepared you for what came next, and how it deepened your faith in a way nothing else could. You'll realize that the very thing that felt like it was breaking you was actually building you. So while struggle is never easy, it is often necessary. It doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're growing. It means you're being strengthened for something greater. And even when you can't see the purpose right now, trust that it's there. Trust that growth is happening with every step you take, even the painful ones. Because through struggle, we don't just survive, we become who we were meant to be. God uses pain to draw us closer. That may sound difficult to accept when you're in the middle of suffering, when the hurt feels overwhelming, or when life doesn't seem fair. In moments of deep pain, it's natural to wonder where God is, or why he would allow such hardship. But often it's in those very moments of struggle that we begin to reach for him with a kind of sincerity and desperation that we don't usually show when everything is going well. Pain has a unique way of getting our attention, breaking through the distractions of daily life and reminding us of our need for something greater than ourselves. And in that need, God meets us. We often live under the illusion of control, believing we can manage everything on our own. When life is comfortable, we rely on our plans, our resources, and our routines. We might still believe in God, but we can easily drift into living independently of him. It's during seasons of pain, however, that the illusion of control falls apart. When we face things we cannot fix, when we're brought to the end of our strength, we're forced to confront our limitations. And in that place of vulnerability, something sacred happens. Our hearts open in a new way. We begin to call out to God, not just out of habit or tradition, but because we deeply, desperately need him. This is not because God enjoys our suffering. It's because he knows that sometimes pain is the only thing that wakes us up. It shakes us out of spiritual numbness and brings us to a place where we can truly encounter him. In our brokenness, we become more honest. We start asking real questions, crying real tears, and praying real prayers. We stop pretending and we start seeking. That space of raw need is often where the most powerful spiritual growth begins. When we come to God in our pain, he doesn't turn us away. He doesn't scold us for not coming sooner or for not having it all together. Instead, he welcomes us with compassion. He meets us in the middle of our mess. He walks with us through the valley, offering comfort, strength, and peace that doesn't always make the pain disappear, but helps us endure it with hope. And over time, as we lean on him, our relationship with him deepens. We stop seeing God as distant and start experiencing him as present, personal, and faithful. Pain teaches us how to pray differently. In easy times, our prayers can become routine. But when we're hurting, our prayers become more raw and real. We're not worried about sounding perfect. We're just trying to survive. And in those moments of honest prayer, something beautiful happens. We stop talking at God and start talking with him. We bring him our fears, our questions, our anger, and our doubts, and in doing so, we begin to experience a deeper intimacy with him. We begin to realize that God is not just someone we turn to in emergencies. He is someone we can walk with daily, someone who cares about every detail of our lives, someone who is near to the brokenhearted. Sometimes it's only after the pain has passed that we can see how close God truly was during those hard times. Looking back, we begin to recognize how he sustained us, how he provided strength we didn't know we had, how he sent people to support us, how he gave us moments of peace in the storm. These are not coincidences. They are signs of a loving God drawing us closer to himself through the very thing we wished would go away. And as we grow closer to him, our faith is no longer based on circumstances. It becomes rooted in trust. We learn to believe in his goodness, not just when life is good, but even when life hurts. We begin to understand that God's presence is not proven by a pain-free life, but by the way he carries us through our pain. That kind of faith is unshakable, because it's not built on comfort, it's built on experience. So if you're in a season of pain right now, take heart. You are not alone, and your pain is not pointless. God sees you, he hears you, and he is using this season not to push you away, but to draw you closer. You may not feel it now, but this could be the beginning of the most honest, most intimate relationship you've ever had with him. Sometimes, what we see as the breaking point is actually the starting point of a deeper walk with God. And in the end, that closeness is one of the greatest treasures we can ever find. Your story can help others. That might be hard to believe, especially when you're in the middle of pain or just coming out of a difficult season. When we go through struggles, our first instinct is often to hide them, to move on, or to forget them. We may feel ashamed, broken, or too tired to revisit the past. Your story matters, not just because of what you went through, but because of what it can do in the lives of others. Every person you meet is fighting a battle you may never fully understand. People carry hidden wounds, grief, insecurity, trauma, loss, and they're often looking for someone who gets it. Not someone with perfect answers, but someone who has been there. It can be the reminder they need that healing is possible, that they are not alone, and that there is still hope on the other side of what they're going through. When you share your story, you give others permission to be honest about theirs. You create space for vulnerability, for real conversations, for the kind of connection that heals. Too often, people feel isolated in their suffering They think they're the only one dealing with depression, anxiety, addiction, heartbreak, or doubt. But when someone bravely speaks up and says, "I've been there too," it changes everything. It breaks the silence. It shatters the lie that pain must be hidden. And it opens the door for others to begin their own healing journey. You don't need to have everything figured out to be helpful. You don't need to have the perfect words or the perfect life. In fact, it's often the imperfect parts of your story that speak the loudest. People don't need to hear that life is always easy or that faith erases every struggle. They need to hear how you wrestled with doubt, how you kept going when you wanted to give up, how you found peace even in the middle of chaos. They need to see that healing is messy and progress is not always linear, and that's okay. Sometimes the purpose of your pain is not just personal growth, but shared impact. What nearly broke you can become the very thing that builds someone else up. The comfort you receive from others or from God can now be passed on. Your story can be someone else's survival guide, showing them the way forward when they feel lost. It can be the bridge that connects someone to hope, faith, or even to God himself. Because when people see what you've overcome, they begin to believe they can overcome too. It's not always easy to share your story. It takes courage to be vulnerable, to revisit old wounds, and to risk being misunderstood. But the reward is great. Every time you choose to speak your truth, you chip away at the stigma that surrounds pain. You help create a culture where honesty and healing are more important than appearances. And most importantly, you become part of something bigger, something that turns suffering into strength, brokenness into beauty, and pain into purpose. There's something powerful about knowing that nothing you've been through is wasted. Even the parts you wish never happened can be used for good. They can become the very thing that equips you to help others. Your perspective, your empathy, your wisdom. These are gifts born from your journey. And when you offer them to others, you're not only honoring your own story, but also allowing it to become a tool for healing in someone else's life. So don't underestimate the power of your story. Someone out there is waiting for the hope you carry. They need your honesty, your strength, your reminder that life after pain is possible. Even if you're still healing, even if the story isn't finished, what you've lived through so far can still make a difference. You survived for a reason. And part of that reason might be to help someone else survive too. God is always present, even in silence. That can be one of the hardest truths to hold on to, especially in moments when everything in life feels uncertain, heavy, or overwhelming. When we pray and there's no answer, when we cry out in pain and hear nothing in return, it can seem like God has forgotten us or turned away. The silence can feel unbearable, almost louder than noise, filling our hearts with questions and doubt. But the reality is, God's presence is not measured by how much we feel him or hear him. His presence is constant, steady, and faithful, even when we're surrounded by silence. There are times in life when God feels near, when his peace surrounds us, and his direction is clear. But there are also seasons when everything feels quiet. We beg for answers and get none. We long for comfort, but feel alone. And in those times, we can begin to wonder if God is still there, still listening, still involved. But just because we can't sense him doesn't mean he's absent. Silence is not the same as abandonment. In fact, God often does his deepest work in the quiet. Think of the way seeds grow. You bury them in the dark, and for a long time, nothing seems to be happening. But beneath the surface, transformation is taking place. Roots are being formed. The foundation is being laid, and life is beginning in silence and stillness. Our lives are often the same. In the silent seasons, when it feels like nothing is changing or moving, God is at work beneath the surface. He's shaping our hearts, building our character, and preparing us for what comes next. The silence is not a void. It's a sacred space where growth begins. God's silence is not a sign of his absence, but sometimes a sign of his trust. He knows when to speak and when to let us walk by faith. There are moments when he steps back, not to leave us, but to strengthen us. Just like a teacher is silent during a test, God sometimes stays quiet, so we can apply what we've already learned, so we can grow, and so our trust in him can deepen. That doesn't mean he's not with us. It means he believes we're ready to take a step of faith, even without immediate confirmation. It's easy to love God when we feel his presence. It's much harder to love him when he seems distant. But real faith grows in those silent places. It's in those moments that we learn to trust him for who he is, not just for what he gives or says. We begin to lean on his promises instead of our emotions. We remember his faithfulness in the past and hold on to it in the present. We choose to believe that even if we can't trace his hand, we can trust his heart. Many people in Scripture went through seasons of silence. Job, after losing everything, sat in silence for days before God responded. David cried out again and again in the Psalms, asking God why he was silent. Jesus himself on the cross cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That moment of divine silence did not mean God had left him. It was the fulfillment of a plan that would save the world. If even Jesus experienced silence, then we can understand that silence is not rejection. It's often part of a greater story. In the silence, God invites us to listen more closely, to quiet the noise of the world and tune into his still, small voice. He invites us to slow down, to reflect, and to lean into a deeper kind of faith. It's in the quiet that we often discover things we wouldn't hear in the noise. Truths about who God is, who we are, and what really matters. We begin to see life through a different lens. We stop relying on signs and start relying on his presence. So if you're in a season of silence, don't give up. Keep praying, even if the words feel empty. Keep seeking, even if you feel like you're getting nowhere. Keep trusting, even when the silence stretches longer than you hope. God is not gone. He is not ignoring you. He is closer than you think, working in ways you can't yet see. And one day, when the time is right, you'll look back and realize that even in the silence, he was speaking. Even in the stillness, he was moving. And even in the quiet, he never left your side. There's a greater plan unfolding. It may not be visible in the middle of your pain. It may not be clear when doors close, when people leave, when dreams are delayed, or when life takes a turn you never expected. But even when everything seems out of control, there is a divine plan at work. Something bigger, wiser, and more beautiful than anything you could script on your own. Every setback, every heartbreak, every delay may be setting the stage for something greater that God has planned for your life. It doesn't always feel that way in the moment. Often it feels confusing and frustrating. You may wonder why things are falling apart or why nothing is going the way you hoped. Life rarely moves in straight lines. Sometimes you take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Sometimes you pour your heart into something only to watch it crumble. But those disappointments and detours are not the end of the story. They might be the very things God is using to redirect you, to protect you, or to prepare you for something beyond what you imagined. We tend to measure life by what we can see right now, but God sees the whole picture. He sees where you've been, where you are, and where he's taking you, and his timing is always intentional. It's in the delays and disappointments that we often grow the most. Waiting teaches us patience. Heartbreak teaches us compassion. Setbacks teach us resilience. These are the qualities that shape us for the future God is building. When things don't go as planned, it doesn't mean the plan is ruined. It might just mean that your plan isn't big enough, but God's is. He sees every piece of your story and knows how to use each one for good. Sometimes God allows certain doors to close because they were never meant to be opened in the first place. Other times he asks us to wait because the right opportunity, the right relationship, or the right season hasn't arrived yet. And in some cases, he takes us through storms not to punish us, but to strengthen us, to teach us how to trust him even when the skies are dark. It's in these moments, when we're confused, hurting, or waiting, that our faith is tested. But it's also when we're most likely to encounter God in a deeper way. The truth is, we don't have to understand everything to trust that there's a greater purpose at work. We don't need to have all the answers to believe that our lives are being shaped with meaning and care. Faith means believing there's more to the story than what we can currently see. It means holding on to hope even when things don't make sense, trusting that God is not finished yet. The pieces might not fit right now, but in time, the picture will come together. God has a way of taking the worst moments of our lives and using them for something good. What feels like an ending can be the beginning of a new chapter. What feels like loss can lead to unexpected gain. What feels like a failure can become the foundation for something more meaningful. His plans are not limited by our past, our pain, or our imperfections. In fact, he often works most powerfully through our brokenness, because that's where his strength is made perfect. But there's a kind of peace that comes when you start to believe that nothing in your life is wasted. Not the tears, not the trials, not the waiting. It all matters. It's all part of the journey. Even when it feels like your life is off track, you might actually be right where you need to be. The delays are not denials. The setbacks are not the end. They are the shaping tools of something greater that is yet to come. So if you're in a place where things don't make sense, where you're questioning what's next, or wondering why things are so hard, remember this: God is still writing your story. The current chapter may be painful or confusing, but it's not the whole story. A greater plan is unfolding, one filled with purpose, beauty, and hope. And when the time is right, it will all come together in a way that reveals just how intentional and loving God has been all along.